Okay, good morning. Today I'm going to talk to you about Black Wall Street. This is for my AP classes. This is the lesson we were going to learn on Friday and then on Monday. So, when we talk about Black Wall Street, one of the things you have to understand is that this is a lesson that when I first heard about it, it blew my mind that I had never experienced learning about this in civil rights classes. And I actually learned about this from a substitute teacher named Mr. McFarland, who told me about this. And it just blew my mind because I kept thinking how in the world had I never heard about this, and it'd be such a pivotal moment in civil rights. So today I'm going to tell you about Black Wall Street. Now, to go backwards a little bit, after slavery is abolished, the Civil War has ended. Many Southern blacks decided to flee the South, right? They're escaping Jim Crow, the oppression of the South, all the things in the South that you read and seen in movies and stuff about how rough black people had it in the South. Now, that is not to say that black people up in the North had it great. We talked about black people that went out west, mentioned them, the Exodusters, for example. This is a scenario where black people are looking for a way that they can go and live without facing persecution. So when you get to this slide, it's going to ask you, why would Southern blacks want you to leave or want to leave after slavery? Okay, so feel free to post your image, and you can pause this video if you want to post your image here. Okay, so enter Greenwood. Now, Greenwood is a historic freedom colony in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It soon became one of the most predominant areas in all of American history for its contribution to black American businesses in the early United States in the 20th century. So this is going to be an area where black people all kind of conjugate to create a black uh, controlled area to basically see how well could black people achieve without facing oppression. Okay, so why might they have chosen Tulsa? And again, you can pause this video and post your image if you like. Okay, so I'm sorry, let me go back to this slide. Why Tulsa? And one of the things I want to point out is if you look where Tulsa is, it's very centrally located, right? It's not so far north that it's a huge culture shock. But then again, it's not so far south towards the deep heart of the South. You'll also notice if you look at it on a map, it's very centrally located to the entire country. So that's a major reason why they chose Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay, so enter this guy named O.W. Gurley. Now, around the start of the 20th century, a wealthy black landowner from Arkansas decided to buy up a ton of land in the northern part of Tulsa, where land is cheap. He made plots of land so that he wanted to only be sold to what he called colored people, right? So he's kind of the architect of this whole design to create a city by black people for black people to allow black people to flourish. Okay, and again, you can post an image. Why do you think he would want land to be only for black people? Of course, this is your opinion, so you can post an image or a hashtag of why you think he would do that. Or, I'm sorry, a response. Now, many people began to move here. I'm sorry. Many that moved here did have some Native American ancestors, and so they worked together with the Native Americans to kind of set this all up. They would use this connection to help set up their community, and both began to thrive socially and economically. And I asked the question, why do you think Native Americans would want to help them? Okay, well, obviously Native Americans would help them because who had suffered more at the hands of white people than Native Americans had? Okay, so they kind of create natural allies. Now, as Tulsa grows, many begin to see Tulsa as being kind of two different cities in one, right? So you got one portion of Tulsa that's where all the black people live, and another portion where there's almost no black people. And the portion that where all the black people lived was often referred to as Little Africa by the locals. By 1921, the area had more than 10,000 black people living there. Okay, so why do you think Tulsa was being seen as two different cities? Now enter Greenwood. Greenwood is this portion of Tulsa again that has all the black people living in it. And it begins to have everything you could ever ask for. It has stores, markets, banks, schools, libraries, hospitals, whatever you can think of. Even has a thriving nightlife, right? It is a great place to be for anybody, particularly for black people. And people of Greenwood are starting to become really proud of what they're accomplishing, right? It's a scenario where black people are walking around, they're walking down the street, and they really feel that sense of joy and accomplishment in watching the city grow and watching it flourish. So here's a question. If you're a black person in the early 1900s, knowing what the exodusters have faced, knowing what people up north are facing, knowing what black people in the south are facing, would you have wanted to live in Tulsa? Now, in the 1910s, oil becomes a huge commodity. And it seems like everything is turning up aces for the black people in Greenwood. Because as fortune would have it, this is an area that is very rich with oil. Because of this, now they have their commodity that allows the city to grow. So think of it this way: if this is kind of Wakanda, they just discovered vibranium, right? This is a commodity that they can sell to the world market. It flourishes the city so much they begin to set up their own version of Wall Street to trade. Okay, so again, hashtag the image. I'm sorry, this image of oil and the impact of discovering oil. Now enter this man, J.B. Stradford. Now, seeing what is going on in Greenwood, JB is an eager young entrepreneur who's looking to cash in to kind of build on what is going on down there. And he wants to thrive in this new Black Wall Street. He would end up becoming the wealthiest businessman in the city, white or black, right? So even on the white side of the city, there was nobody that was as wealthy as J.B. Stratford. Okay, so hashtag or put an image of J.B. Stratford. Now, Stratford would buy more land to only be sold for black people. He would build the Hotel Stratford, the largest black owned hotel in America. He saw it as important to build a place where black people could prosper. Okay, and there's an image of his hotel. Now it's not that massive by today's standards. You got to realize we're talking about the early 1900s. So this is the largest black owned hotel in North America at the time. Oops, this slide is out of place. Okay, so we'll go back to that side. So enter this guy right here named Dick Rowland. Now, Dick Rowland is a 19-year-old shoe shine. He is accused of assaulting a 17-year-old white girl named Sarah Page. Now, it should be of note there's no evidence. Uh, Even Sarah Page herself said, no, he didn't assault me. But somebody claimed he assaulted this girl. So they take him into custody anyway. And the people of Tulsa, of Greenwood, start fearing, oh man, they're going to end up lynching this kid. Okay, and so they're really worried for this kid. Okay, so how do you think the people of Tulsa are going to react to this? Now, a group of armed black men rushed the police station. There they found a crowd of white people waiting for them, right? So it was pretty obvious this was all a setup. They deliberately snagged this kid because they're trying to instigate an altercation. A gunfight breaks out and 12 people are killed, 10 white people and 2 black people. Now, how do you think the mostly white government in Tulsa is going to react to this altercation? You think they're going to round up everybody and try and get everybody that was uh, involved? Okay, and if when you're playing this, you'll be able to play the video yourself. I'm not going to play it, but you can play it on your own. But to make a long story short, news of this event spreads, causing thousands of white people to rampage through the black neighborhoods that night and the next day. The government does nothing. They begin killing men, women, burning and looting stores and homes, just absolutely demolishing the city of Greenwood. Now, they refer to this as a race riot. It's not. It's a massacre, right? White people just coming in and they're basically destroying, and you can see this image right here. They're just destroying everything that black people had built. Over 300 black people are murdered, making it one of the worst cases of violence ever in the U.S. 35 blocks are just burnt to the ground. More than 800 people are admitted to hospitals, and more than 6,000 black residents are arrested and detained. So they're being arrested just for the crime of having their city burned to the ground. Now, many try to rebuild from the ashes, but as you can imagine, the damage has mostly been done. Most survivors leave out of fear. They don't want to incur any future attacks, and over 10,000 people are left homeless. So here's my question to you. If you had experienced the massacre, would you have chosen to stay? Now, it's believed that the people of Tulsa conspired to cover it up. Hardly any mention of the events ever make it local newspapers. The residents seem to collude to never discuss the events. In 1996, a bipartisan commission looked into the events and discovered that the city of Tulsa itself had conspired with the white mob against the black population there. And again, this conspiracy is so good that one of my areas of focuses in college was civil rights, and I'd never even heard of it. It took a teacher, again, Mr. McFarland, for me to ever even hear about this. So why do you think they conspired to keep it a secret? Now, as a form of reparations, which by the way, the word reparations means to like repay back for the damages done. So, as a form of reparations, the city agrees to offer some of the descendants of the victims college scholarships. They also decide to try to encourage economic development in Greenwood, and they build a memorial park in Tulsa for the riot victims. And it's still called a riot, which is mind boggling. Was this fair compensation to you? If so, why? If not, why not? Okay, put a hashtag for this image, Black Wall Street. Okay, this is an image of right after the massacre. And again, be respectful of these images. And this is one of the questions I kind of had. How do you think this might have inspired the idea of Wakanda from Black Panther? You know, I mentioned I brought that up earlier, but and my last question is, who'd ever even heard about this event before today? Because I know when I was told about it, I'd never heard of it. All right, and that's it. So I look forward to seeing your answers.